I heard about this Canadian couple that they went to visit Israel in November. So before they returned, they wanted to send some Hanukkah cards from there. So they go to the post office and said to the clerk, say, can we have 40 stamps, please? And the clerk said, sure. Which denomination? He said, oh, come on. Okay, give me 10 Orthodox, 10 Conservative, 10 Reform, and 10 Secular. So I want to talk to you today about, some people are just getting it. Love that. Love it. Love it. Maybe I should give you a few more seconds. Okay, I want to talk to you today about words of Chizuk. Words of Chizuk. I'm going to explain in a minute what that is. But before, I want to share with you some of the feelings that I've been feeling for the last month, I will say, because now that we are going into second month in this war with Hamas. And I don't know about you, but I feel that the past is knocking at that door. It's so some of the things that I've seen in the last month, and because I guess I started to think about conversations that I have with my grandmother. She was telling me when she was very little, before the Second War, she was telling me how her family had to leave Russia because of all the attacks that they were suffering, and how her parents were attacked. In fact, my grandmother, as a girl, she got hit on the head, and she always had this like kind of flat skull. And I asked her what happened. I said, she was hit because she was a Jew, and we heard about the pogroms back then. It's in the past, or maybe it's not. We heard at school maybe about houses of Jews in Europe being, with Star of David's painted outside, right? We heard about people going outside chanting, death to the Jews, but we always thought that belonged to a museum in black and white. We used to see this in all black and white documentaries. Am I right? Not anymore. It's a full color right now, and it's happening in our generation. We are living things that we never experienced before. This generation never had the opportunity to experience anything like this. This is something that unfortunately previous generations did experience. And I'm not talking just about 100, 200 years ago, 300, 400, 500 years ago, forever. But then I was thinking, okay, we are going through something that previous generations went through. So how did they make it to the other side? What was their secret to stay strong and to keep moving forward? Maybe we can learn that from them so we can apply it to our life, and we have a better chance to go through what this generation is going through. And what is our secret? Our secret is, as I mentioned at the beginning of the sermon, words of Chizuk. What is words of Chizuk? Something, the word Chizuk comes from the word chazak, which means strengthen. So words of Chizuk are words of spiritual encouragement, or words that strengthen our spirits. And this is something that it was always there. I always take time during the week to study Torah. And I have different sites that I go. And when you go to one of these sites to study Torah, they have shiurim, they have different classes. One of the sections, I never pay attention to that, but one of the sections, it was always there, is Chizuk. I always click Parsha, maybe Talmud, right, to study, but Chizuk. But since last month, I started to hear this word more and more. So I went to the section called Chizuk. What's that? Those are words specifically picked by the rabbis to strengthen ourselves to go through different times. And I said, wow, that was always there. And thank God, I never needed it. Same thing, I don't know if you noticed, the prayer for the captives that we read today. It's not something that it was composed in a hurry last month after Hamas captured over 200 people. Believe it or not, if you go to a traditional Siddur, that prayer was always there, and I bet you never noticed it. Why? Because thank God we never needed it. We never need to say in a synagogue such prayer till now. So now we are discovering all the things that the previous generations gave us, so we can have a better chances to endure this challenge in a better shape. But the most important thing that we always have are the words of Chizuk, words of encouragement, words of support. And that brings me to this week's parsha. When Abraham was going through a very difficult situation, he just had his circumcision, he was very old, and God promised him that he was going to have a son with Sarah. That never happened. So, Abraham kept doing the right thing at the right time, and none of the promises seems to happen, and he was depressed. He wasn't going through a good time. And then we read in this parsha that 3 angels, or actually it doesn't say that they were angels, 3 people came to visit Abraham and Sarah to give them the good news. Abraham, Sarah, you're going to have a baby. Those were works of Chizuk. Somebody knocked at the door to give them good news, said, don't despair, don't be depressed. You're going to have a baby. Now, when this person said this to Abraham and Sarah, Sarah laughed. And it's interesting, because God, if you read the Torah, God said, what is Sarah laughing? The meaning of those words is something that we should ask ourselves. Those words are words of rebuke. It's saying, what is she laughing? And perhaps a better question is, what should she have done when she heard those news? What would you do if somebody comes to you in the middle of all the disgraciness around the world? Somebody, like a total stranger, like this person, people who came to visit them, total strangers, say to you, don't worry, everything is going to be fine. What will be your reaction? And I will say, some people will do like Sarah. They will laugh and say, what do you know? What do you know about my situation? What do you know about the situation of my people? But yet, God is bringing words of rebuke to Sarah. And the teaching is, when somebody comes to you with words of Chizuk, doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter who the person is, you should never laugh. Your obligation as a Jew is always to say Amen. When somebody says to you, everything is going to be fine, Amen. The captives are going to be released, Amen. We don't laugh. We take that as a blessing. But you say, well, but what do I know? It's a person. It's not God telling me that. Well, let me tell you something. Because this is even more interesting. Because in this parsha, at the very beginning, again, we read section 2, right? I'm talking about section 1 of the parsha, at the very beginning, when we read the name of the parsha, Vayera. It says, Vayera elav Adonai. And God appeared to him. Okay? Who is him? Who is him? It doesn't say. Him could be you. The rabbi said, the Torah purposely leave the subject of that verse hidden. Because it said, God appeared to him, to her, to you. And then it continues, in the heat of the day, when it was intolerable that day. And then God is about to give words of Chizuk. And then it says, and Abraham lifted up his eyes. And what did he see? 3 people. So it's not that God doesn't talk to us. It's not that God doesn't bring personally words of Chizuk. It's just that sometimes God sent people. In this case, we said God sent angels. But what is an angel after all? The word for angel in Hebrew is malach, angels malachim, which means messengers. They were messengers of God. So God sent words of Chizuk to Abraham through messengers. And these messengers, who were totally unknown to Abraham, said, "You're going to have a baby." And Abraham said, "Amen." And eventually, they had a baby. So sometimes it's great when we can give words of Chizuk to other people. But I realize that there is a bigger issue, and is that we have to also learn to receive words of Chizuk without laughing, without judgment. Everybody comes to you in this week with words of encouragement. They mean well. And hey, who knows? They may be angels from God. So our obligation as Jews is not to laugh, not to dismiss, but to say, Amen. So if I say, Am Israel Chai, you say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom.